It's finally here. After months of speculation, rumors, and piecemeal leaks, the full specs of the Nintendo Switch 2 are essentially locked in. And yes, it's looking like a huge generational leap from the original Switch. At Technology Review, we've been following this story closely, and today we're diving deep into the confirmed specifications, hardware design, and the sheer performance potential of the Nintendo Switch 2. Forget everything you knew about the original Nintendo Switch. This successor isn't just an upgrade. It's a full-blown reimagining of what a hybrid gaming console can be in 2025. Backed by NVIDIA's new custom silicon, the Nintendo Switch 2 appears ready to challenge even more powerful handhelds and modern consoles with smart design decisions, generous memory, a newer CPU/GPU combo, and flexible system resources designed for the long haul. Nintendo and NVIDIA, a deeper partnership. Let's start with what's powering the Nintendo Switch 2. Internally, this console uses a custom chip designed by NVIDIA, known as the T239. Unlike the Switch 1, which used a rather standard Tegra X1 chip, the Switch 2's SoC is tailor-made for Nintendo's needs. This chip leans heavily into NVIDIA's Ampere GPU architecture, the same foundation found in the RTX 30 series for PCs. This is massive. It means better power efficiency, higher performance, and access to NVIDIA's advanced graphical features. But the GPU isn't the only major upgrade. The CPU is also a significant step forward. Nintendo has opted for the ARM Cortex A78C, an 8-core processor based on the 64-bit ARMv8 architecture with cryptography extensions enabled. This is modern, powerful, and far more efficient than the aging Cortex A57S found in the original Switch. Power profiles and developer flexibility. Nintendo's new system isn't just a slab of powerful hardware. It's also smart in how it allocates and reserves resources. 2 of the 8 CPU cores are reserved for the OS and system tasks, which means developers get access to 6 full cores, double the 3 cores available on the original Switch. In GPU terms, developers also get the ability to modify clock speeds within certain limits. This flexibility allows developers to prioritize battery life or performance, depending on the game's requirements. Clocks can go up to 1.4 GHz on the GPU side, compared to a standard 1.07 GHz docked and 561 MHz in handheld. For reference, the Switch 1 GPU topped out at 768 MHz in docked mode. Again, we're talking about a 2x or more jump in potential. The GPU is backed by 1,536 CUDA cores. To put that into perspective, the original Switch had just 256. This is not a small increase, it's a complete leap. Memory and bandwidth, a real next-gen console. The Nintendo Switch 2 is equipped with 12 GB of LPDDR5 RAM on a 128-bit bus. Compared to the 4 GB LPDDR4 setup in the first Switch, that's not just more RAM, it's faster and wider memory bandwidth. The bandwidth figures are impressive. 102 GB per second when docked and 68 GB per second in handheld mode. The original Switch had bandwidth limited to 25.6 GB per second docked, so this is a 3-4x increase in raw throughput. Why does this matter? Because modern gaming isn't just about having a fast CPU and GPU. It's about how fast you can feed them data. With nearly triple the memory bandwidth and more RAM allocated to developers, 9 GB for games versus just over 3 GB previously, the Nintendo Switch 2 can handle larger textures, higher resolution assets, and more complex physics and AI routines. Also worth noting, even though the memory is technically LPDDR5X, Nintendo is currently running it at LPDDR5 speeds for consistency and battery efficiency. This means there may be future potential for even faster memory with a simple firmware update or newer iteration of the hardware. A clear path for future upgrades. Nintendo seems to be repeating a very smart strategy here. Much like the Switch 1, which received power profile updates and clock speed tweaks via software. The Switch 2 appears to be built with longevity in mind. Developers could one day be granted access to those higher clocks, both CPU and GPU, to support future games or remasters. And since we're already hearing about this in the specs, it's not wild speculation. It's very likely. Nintendo has learned from the past. They understand that games grow more demanding, even on a closed platform like the Switch. By giving devs access to multiple profiles and letting them tweak clock speeds based on game state, like boosting CPU during loading screens, Switch 2 becomes more adaptable than anything Nintendo has previously launched. GPU details and graphics capabilities. On the graphics side, the Nintendo Switch 2 is leaps and bounds ahead. The Ampere-based GPU and 1,536 CUDA cores offer a much more modern visual pipeline. We're talking support for DLSS, deep learning supersampling, potentially real-time ray tracing, and much higher resolution gaming than the 720p standard the original Switch often defaulted to. The GPU's performance is estimated to be many times that of the original Switch, which opens up opportunities for not just crisper visuals, but also smoother frame rates, more detailed environments, and richer physics simulations. Combined with NVIDIA's DLSS upscaling, even if the Switch 2 is targeting 1080p internally, it could easily upscale to 4K while docked, without stressing the system too hard. Additionally, developers will still have some of the GPU reserved for system tasks, but what's available is substantial. Clock speed ranges provide options for balancing battery life, heat, and performance, giving each game a tailored experience. Real-world implications. So, what does this all mean in terms of actual gameplay? A lot. The Switch 2 won't just look better, it'll feel better. With more RAM, faster CPU, more GPU cores, and higher bandwidth, games will load faster, run smoother, and handle larger game worlds without stuttering. Older games may see significant benefits too. If Nintendo allows backward compatibility with performance boosts, titles from the original Switch could receive resolution or frame rate upgrades automatically, especially during loading, where the CPU can spike to its max. Additionally, we now understand Nintendo's approach is to build systems with latent power, performance potential that can be unlocked over time via updates or smart engineering. It's a bold, consumer-friendly direction that helps extend the lifespan of each generation while offering meaningful improvements to players. Closing thoughts. With the Nintendo Switch 2, the company isn't just updating the internals. It's re-engineering how a hybrid console operates. This isn't just about specs on a sheet. It's about freedom for developers, flexibility for updates, and a massive boost in performance that brings Nintendo much closer to traditional console competition, all while staying true to its portable roots. From raw CPU power to GPU muscle and memory bandwidth, the Nintendo Switch 2 is shaping up to be a truly next-generation system in a very Nintendo kind of way. One that favors smart design over brute force and aims to deliver joy for years to come. At Technology Review, we'll be keeping a close eye on how this unfolds. And when the Switch 2 launches, you can be sure we'll have full coverage, hands-on impressions, and real-world tests to see how this beast performs. Until then, get hyped, because Nintendo's next big thing might just be the most exciting console of the generation.